Griffin Sturgeon from the Seattle Overload podcast joins us on the show again tonight. He's been on the show before. Griff's awesome, man. Breaks down a lot of film, and this is the type of show where we're excited to have him on because we're post draft, and now we have all these young rookies that are coming in and rookie mini camps getting going and firing up. So we're going to talk to Griff and get his insights on what he thinks of all these guys, these new faces that are in Seattle, and we're going to break all that down with Griff, talk some camp battles potentially, who he thinks, how many guys are they going to carry at certain positions, who's going to have a hard time battling out all of a sudden. And then we're going to talk a little quarterback stuff too, because that Jalen Milroe is an exciting pick. We love him. But there's been some hype now from the Twitter world and other things in that. So we're going to talk to Griff about all that. It's going to be an awesome show, guys. So Griffin Sturgeon on the other side. But before that, guys, if you haven't done it yet, go down, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share the videos, throw a comment down on the videos too. That all helps out. We love engaging with you guys too. And you can also go down and buy us a coffee. Links are in the description. So on the other side, guys, Griffin Sturgeon.
So y'all can sit here and ask me all the questions y'all want to.
Don't you ever talk about
Man, let's go. It's go time, baby.
I'm just about that action, boss.
You ready to go get it. You just like to do it.
That's what it is.
Defense trying to do that. Pass is caught back in. Can't chase it. What a catch! Jackson Smith and Are you kidding me? Baldwin. Oh my goodness, he caught it.
This is the HawksZone Rundown with your hosts, Ryan and Bryce.
Guys, back on the show with us a second time around, Griffin Sturgeon from Seattle Overload. The draft is over, and we're sort of settling into that time now, rookie mini camp, some things to talk about. But, Griff, we appreciate you coming on, breaking down the draft. We're pretty excited about it, man. What was your first impressions with the mini camp? Mike McDonald, high praise with Jalen Milroe. That's been, a hot topic of late, but what was your overall impression so far coming out of rookie minicamp there?
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me back. Rookie minicamp, as you guys know, just the young guys getting their feet wet, trying to adjust to the building, and new environs, all that stuff. I think him mentioning, like for Milroe, I'm not surprised that Milroe looks good throwing in a padless practice, and that's a setting where he looks probably the best, in any sort of off season activity. So, it's good to get good things out of there. He at the very least is an intriguing player that they took. So, he'll be fun to keep tabs on throughout the off season, the season, and maybe as the season progresses in the coming years. I liked with Eamon Warrior. I mean, he kind of set the stage for Eamon Warrior, I think, talked about what was exciting, but then also kind of hinted at in his own way that there will be a little bit of a learning curve, which is true for all the players. And he did try to generalize that statement, like extend that commentary on Eamon Warrior to the rest of the crew that they brought in. And yeah, it sounds like Zabel is everything that they signed up for with him. So, to the extent that you can glean anything from, this period, it's I think it's mostly what you would expect or want to hear.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Griff, because, you look obviously at Jalen Milroe, quarterback we took, first one we've taken really at a significant point in the draft since Russ in the John Schneider era. And the first thing I start seeing on Twitter is people saying, oh, yeah, well, he's going to push Sam to start the show. I'm like, just slow the roll, everybody. Like, let this guy get acclimated. He's in shorts and a T-shirt. You listen to Brian Nimhauser of Hawk Blogger say he looked better than Senior Bowl, but that's a very big gap because Senior Bowl, he looked horrible. And, I want to see this kid succeed because if you hit on this pick, it's huge for Seattle. It alters the franchise in a lot of ways, but let's just let this guy come into the situation. There are two quarterbacks that are ahead of him. It's not going to change. I don't think it's going to change this season. I think they're very committed to Darnold being the starter, Drew Lock being number two, and Jalen will get his opportunities in games through packages and whatnot. We've heard McDonald kind of allude to that, but I just don't want to see people get this crazy expectation for a kid that has a lot of things he needs to work on to be a top level or above average NFL starter. And so it'll be interesting to see his growth going forward through training camp, the preseason games and all that. But you look at this class as a whole, like you said, Gray Zabel sounds like he's everything they wanted. He's going to bring an attitude. Even the other two linemen in Bryce Caleb who was one of my draft favorites, and Mason Richmond, like they're guys that I think are going to push for backup roles this year and really push some of the guys that I think are on this roster as it currently is set up. The interesting thing, like you said about Emin Wari, though, is that he's this amazing athlete, but it definitely sounds like there's going to be a learning curve and an area for him to work on is going to be more on the mental side than necessarily the physical side of the game. So, yeah, overall, like I look at this rookie minicamp, and from what we've heard is, kind of the things you always expect at a rookie minicamp. The guys look good. They're moving around. You get to see your draft class. The one guy, though, like listening to Brian and some of these other guys talk is Elijah Arroyo. Looks like he's going to be really, I think he may be the one out of this whole class that outside of Gray Zabel has the biggest impact this year for this team, because it looks like he's just going to be an X factor in the ways that they can use him.
Agree with you. Yeah. Arroyo was a guy that I liked pre-draft, and I watched maybe, 4 or 5 games of him. And then once they drafted him, of course, I watched every game I could get my hands on film wise. And he was one of those players where I liked more the more that I watched him. And if I gave him a 3rd round grade pre-draft. If I were to regrade him, I would have given him a really strong 2nd round. And obviously that's where he went. Yeah, I mean, he's a good player. He's kind of the classic F type tight end, right?
Yeah.
He's a high effort blocker. Like, he truly is high effort. It's just, he's not moving body. He's not moving 6 techniques or 5 techniques. Right. And they would put him kind of in the core, but off the line a little bit at Miami. So he could be the kind of the split motion man, but they would still have him block the 6 technique, and he couldn't move the guy. But climbing the linebackers and DBs, like, he could pop a DB like the way you would hope a tight end would pop a DB. And then he could give some linebackers some trouble. Occasionally, maybe he'd overrun it, but I like the effort there. But as a pure receiver, like a lot of those F-type tight ends, right? You get them, and they're really not that good at receiving. Like a lot of them in college, they're just running into vacant zone windows, right? They get pressed at the line of scrimmage. They don't really have a bag, like a release package, right? And then, or they get bodied in their route. And even if they can sustain it, it slows them down, and the timing is disrupted in one-on-one situations, whether it's like cover 3 match or true cover 1 or trail, right? In Arroyo's case, he can actually get off the line. Like, he can beat press, and he can actually, I mean, he can fight guys, like hand fight through his route. And who he reminded me of a lot, like as a mover, like how he can vary his stride length and drop his hips and pads and stuff and fight with you through the route, even if he's not separating but still winning position. Even though this guy hasn't had great NFL success yet, but he reminded me of Michael Mayer as a runner, as a mover at Notre Dame, just the way, like, he just dominated his space in a short area, even like when he's not separating necessarily. So the timing of the route was never disrupted. Arroyo, he can separate, don't get me wrong, but he always stays on schedule, even if a guy's like in his hip pocket. Like, he just sustains and keeps winning. And then, of course, he can shake you at the top of the route if you give him space. Like, he can move like that. So I think that's really important, because, like, like the F in the scheme, even if he's not the X, the F sometimes functions like the X, and they take the true X off the line behind, like, right? So you can do different things with him, and he makes the each side of the field kind of like ambidextrous when you go into 2x2 stuff. So I just think he fits the archetype, and then, like, not only does he fit the archetype, like, he's good at it, within there. So I'm pretty excited about him. I mean, I could see him down the line being one of those tight ends that rattles off 700, 800, 900 yard seasons. And I don't think it would surprise any of us if this time next year or in 2 years, he's the 2nd leading target behind JSN. So, I mean, I don't want to say sky's the limit for him, but it's pretty high up there. He's not going to be Travis Kelce, but he doesn't need to be Travis Kelce. I mean, I think he can be better than, say, Kincaid, the kid the Bills drafted. So I'm pretty excited about him. And I was excited to, like, watch a guy and be like, oh, okay, I like this guy more than I thought I did. So, but yeah, how do you guys feel about Arroyo?
So for me with Arroyo, like, I look at him in exactly the kind of the same light you do, Griff. Like, he is a true F tight end, but he's such an athlete. You can actually split him out truly to where an X would be, and he's going to create matchup issues for the defense. Like, a corner trying to get their hands on him is going to be a problem to actually reroute him. And, when I watch him move, and I did the same thing you did. As soon as we drafted all these guys, I dug more into their film, got as much as I could. And the one thing I kept taking away from Arroyo is he is going to be your stretcher of the field down the middle. Like him running those seam routes and those over and those bender routes are really, really going to be big for this offense because he just moves so smoothly. Like you watch him get off the line and then he has different gears he can hit. His stride's really good. And the other thing, like you said, the high effort blocker, like we think about when Jimmy Graham came here, Jimmy didn't want to block. And he showed you he didn't want to block. Like that wasn't his thing. With Arroyo, it's like, no, he actually wants to. He's going to go give you all the effort he can to block. It may not be someone that's driving a 5-tech off the line, but he's going to get his nose in there. He's going to get dirty. And those are the things I think we can look for out of him. Like for me, for a comp, when I watched him move, he gave me Kellen Winslow vibes. Like that type of receiving threat at the tight end position, like that athlete where, okay, how do we play this? Do we bring our nickel onto him? Do we run our safety down into the box more to deal with him? And like you said, when you go in those 2x2 sets, you could put him even in the slot if you want it, and he can run a variety of routes out of that slot spot that are going to cause, nightmares for the defense, especially if you're like, say, you want to go into 12 personnel, but one of those guys is really, it's 21 because it's 2 tight ends on the field. Just one's been bounced into the slot.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. So I'm excited about him. I'm all in on him. And like, I mean, the peak potential there, like if we were to bet, like, yeah, Loveland, if I had to bet, Loveland will have the better career. But if you told me 5 years from now, Arroyo might outproduce him, I would say that's unlikely, but not impossible. Like, you know what I mean? So, I really like that pick.
Yeah. To see where we got him as well in the draft is even more exciting, right? Because if you look at this draft and we talk about the early portion of the draft, the first couple of days, Griff, what was your overall impressions? Because, I made a joke that, after day 2, I think I made a joke like, I don't even care what happens the rest of the draft because I just thought we, checked off the boxes, but the way we did it and, especially getting Melrose there in the third and just feel like we're sort of checking off the boxes, setting ourselves up to compete this year. Obviously, Gray Zabel at 18 was just like, okay, John finally said, okay, here you go. We got new coaches and I'm giving you some talent. All right. That box is checked. Then they go make the aggressive trade and then they get Aoyoo and then obviously Milroe. What was your feelings after those 4 picks? Just with John as a whole, he's taken a lot of criticism, has had some decent drafts, but just especially with the offensive line, obviously being a focal point. So how were you feeling coming out of the first couple of days?
Yeah, overall, I liked the first 2 days. The Zabel pick was like a finally pick. I mean, we all were wanting. You got to take an O-lineman. I know that there might be some qualms about positional value guard in the first, but my view of it is, well, you're taking a tackle convert, so that boosts the value a little bit. But then also it was. It was a pretty good combination of BPA and need as well. And I think they tried to trade back and maybe we're willing to, I think in a perfect world, you get Zabel in the 20s, but we're not really going to care come September, we're just happy he's on the team playing left guard. So I think that's just getting a little too in the weeds of draft strategy and draft value. Like I'm happy he's on the team. I think he's a good player. If he doesn't work out, it was still a good process. I'm not going to fault John for this. Who else are you going to pick there really? I mean, maybe Simmons, if you want to move him to guard, but the injury and I think Zabel probably projected a little bit better moving inside. So that pick, I was like, you had to do it. Best player available. I mean, this was kind of a no-brainer. And, just they're finally getting the monkey off their back at the guard spot, which has just been a problem forever. The Imamori pick was the pick that probably gave me, I think it's the most interesting pick because obviously you get the allure. I mean, you get how vertically explosive and fast he is and the height, weight, speed, right? But as we know, they traded up for this guy, and they didn't just trade up for this guy, but they traded up for him when there were other safeties on the board that I'm sure that they liked. But there were maybe 5 or 6 other quality safeties. That doesn't mean they liked all of them. There might have been 2 or 3 that they earmarked as hey, these guys could really expand things for us. And they chose to not wait on Eamon, like even a little bit. They clearly wanted him, way more than they wanted anybody else. So, and as someone who pre-draft, I had Eamon as a third round pick, and that might be a little cynical for me, coming from me, but that them trading up for this guy, McDonald's, like planting his flag, like that gives me a little bit of pause about my what I described as cynicism with him. But so for me, it's like there's things he's got to work on, but there's also potential. So just gonna let the process play out, see how that goes. I don't want this to be another Melifonwu, Taylor Mays, Jeremy Chin thing. It's and like, unfortunately, like the really big explosive safeties that don't change direction very well historically, like haven't panned out. And I don't think he's that stiff. I think some of it is more technique stuff, like stuff that he can make deliberate choices to clean up. Then he'll look more agile. But obviously, if he couldn't have gone to a better spot to fix the things that he needs to fix. I'll be just perfectly honest. I was, texting my guy Maddie pre-draft, and when I was watching him in Warrior, I said he's obviously a good player, but I said he looks like a press corner that has been miscast as a safety because he kept putting on weight. And if he was 6'3", 205, 210, just a little less, a little less brolic, they'd be like, he's a corner. He's Brandon Browner, runs a 4.4, like awesome, and he keeps putting on weight. And so I just didn't feel like he's best suited as an interior player. But again, like, I think them moving him to nickel is the best thing, because what that does to me is it's the inverse of the Isaiah Simmons experiment, of the Melifonwu experiment. Those guys ended up at nickel after 3 and 4 years of screwing around with their position. Starting him at nickel, because nickel in the NFL today is like a crash course of everything of the interior of the field. You're doing linebacker stuff, you're doing legit nickel corner stuff, you're doing safety stuff from that spot, right? Like all the variety of techniques and the run pass, everything. So by starting him at nickel, I think you're kind of heading off at the pass, the doom that some of these other guys ended up in, like Melifonwu and Simmons. So I'm encouraged by that. And then, if they just clean up his eye progression when he's playing a quarter to the boundary, I mean, he's so explosive coming downhill. He has some plays coming downhill against Ole Miss where it's like, you cannot teach that. Like, that doesn't exist in the NFL. Then he also has plays that game where he's tripping over himself on a double move. And it's like, they just got to calm his eyes down. And then, you won't see him tripping over his own feet as much. So, I mean, it's worth getting excited over. I've talked myself into it more as time has gone on. I mean, I think they find a role for him no matter what. So, excuse me. Yeah, so I think the pick is fine. And then obviously Milroe, it's like we talked about earlier, it's a flyer. So it's a late third round pick. This is the type of player you take in the third round at quarterback. He's not going to supplant Sam Darnold or probably any, quality starting quarterback in the NFL year one, or maybe even year two, or maybe even year three, but you can see what you got with him. For me in preseason, I just want to see how does he look? What is his economy of movement when it's just like, say, play action? When it's 1-2 check down, what does that look like? Because we know in shotgun, like the zone read, that can boost your efficiency like crazy, right? I'm not going to put on his shoulders like criticizing him if he's not a good progression passer out of shotgun, right? Not yet anyway. We'll see what that looks like in year two. But for now, kind of a baby steps. So.
Yeah, when I look at, Emin Worry, for example, I totally agree with you. Like, this makes a lot of sense. Move him into a spot where he can play downhill. He gets this crash course on kind of everything. You let Julian Love and Kobe Bryant still build on the chemistry they had from last year, which by the halfway point of the season forward worked really well. Like, Kobe Bryant came on as a very good player. Julian Love, we already knew was a good safety, and he showed his leadership there. The other thing I like about putting Emin Worry in at nickel, especially in, I assume he'll probably play a majority of snaps there. You free up Devin Witherspoon and his slender frame from playing in that spot, and you're putting, like you said, Griff, a bigger player in that role that can cover tight ends. He can do all the same things. He can come off the edge. He's still a really good athlete, but you're saving Devin from basically getting obliterated. Because there were some times last year when I saw pulling guards come, and Devin, because he is that type of player, goes in there and sticks his nose in there. I'm going, dude, you're lucky if you're 200 pounds and you're getting blown up by a massive guard. You are not going to be Cam Chancellor taking down Eric Winston and just standing him up. Like, there's never going to be another defensive back that really does that to that level. So I agree. I think this is a really good way to get Aaron Warry involved into this defense quick and actually make him an impactful player in his, first year, rather than just, hey, we're going to move him into safety and then, we're going to go through all these lumps. Like, you're putting a guy in to be a weapon in your defense, and you're giving McDonald a chess piece that he didn't really have last year to the same extent, I don't think. So that'll be interesting. And then, like, I look at, the Jalen Milroe pick. I'm in the same camp with you in preseason, Griff. Like, I want to see, how does his lower half of his mechanics look? Like, that's a big thing for me when I watch quarterbacks is, do your eyes and feet work together when you're going through your progressions? Because you'll get some of these young quarterbacks that have played in an RPO system and their eyes and feet are not tied. And that's where you get these errant throws where they're throwing outs and they're behind and it's like a 5 to 7 yard out, or they're sailing the ball. Like, those are the things I want to see from Milroe that get better as he is more in the system. And I think, again, with this offense being under center and them wanting to run the ball and bootlegging and doing a bunch of these things, I think those are good things to get him comfortable in the NFL, especially in the preseason, before you ask him, hey, stand back and shotgun, read this defense, find your apex defender. This is how this is going to work, base this coverage, and go out there and just read the field. Like, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they do that. The thing for me, I think the sneaky guy in this, there's two players for me that are the two sneakiest picks here for the Seahawks. One being Damian Martinez, the running back out of Miami, and the other one being Torrey Horton, the receiver out of Colorado State.
Yeah.
I think if Horton hadn't been hurt, we're talking about a guy that's probably going late second round, early third round, not falling to where he did in this draft. And for me with Martinez he is definitely the first back we've taken that gives me Chris Carson vibes to an extent, like just a tough nose runner that is going to run downhill and he's going to punish anybody that gets in his way.
For sure. Yeah. Horton is, you watch 2 games of his film. He's a good player. I mean, you don't need to do any sort of like, homerism, like qualifier. I mean, he's good. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he's good, like you're saying. And then that injury dropped him. To me, he's a Z that can play X. Yeah. I mean, he can beat press. And it's always like, a lot of these guys can, against a cushion, they can speed cut into a dig route, right, into the open window. But like, he'll work a corner in press and get, win inside leverage on them and scream into a zone void, a voided zone and catch a dig route, then turn it upfield. I mean, he definitely works for them. He's got hands too. He's got ball skills. Doesn't mean he's gonna moss guys all the time, but I mean, I think he's an actual NFL receiver, and he was productive and everything. So he's a guy that I was definitely excited about. And I'm with you on Martinez. Watching the Miami offense with Aoyoo, it was like Martinez showed up a lot. If this draft was 5 years ago, even, he probably goes in the 4th round just because running backs were valued more highly. But I think that like teams have probably had a mid-round grade on him. It's just the running back economy right now is what it is. So he's a good runner, and if you put him behind a competent O-line, he'll average you 4 yards per carry, no problem in the NFL. So I think I think that was a really good, smart pick to hedge Walker, Charbonnet, and McIntosh. I like those picks. Ricky White was another guy that stood out to me on day 3 at UNLV. Did you have any thoughts on Ricky White though?
I liked Ricky White. Like, I looked at him and I was surprised he went in the 7th. I had a bit of a higher grade on him. Super productive guy. And the thing for me with him too is his special teams capability, right? Like, we're talking about a guy blocked 4 field goals or extra points in college, can return the ball. He's a solid blocker. And the thing I like about his route running ability is if you watch him come out of his breaks, he has a like extra gear he hits. And it gets him a little bit of separation. He doesn't have breakaway speed. We're not talking about a guy that's going to take off and go, but he has enough explosion in those steps in his break and out of his break that he can create separation. Like, to me, I think he, when you look at this receiving room as a whole now, yes, you may not have the top end talent that you did have at last year with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and JSN, But for the scheme that they are now about to run and the system they're about to run, I think the room is much more well-rounded in guys that you can put in, that you're not going to see a significant drop-off between, once you get down from Cooper Kupp to JSN, yes, but we're talking about guys that I think are going to be upgrades over like putting a Jake Bobo in there or an MVS or a Cody White. Like we're talking about Horton and Ricky White, who I look at and go, yeah, I think Torrey Horton is going to be probably the number 4 target in this offense, going with either Arroyo or Barner being that, third guy for target share out of Kupp and JSN. I think it's going to be Torrey Horton, and then maybe it might even be Ricky White after that. I just don't know for Jake Bobo and, MVS, if they really like Jake Bobo, I think will fit. MVS might be a guy we see get cut or be in a position battle come training camp.
Okay. Yeah. The heat's breathing down on his neck for sure. I mean, it's not a sure thing at all, I don't think. And it's like receiving room is probably receiving room depth might be the most competitive spot on the team, just because it's like snaps for anyone who takes it, So yeah, that's I'm with you there. I think they did a really good job rostering receiver post DK trade. I mean, given what was available. So
yeah, I want to get into some position battles in a minute, but you brought up the how they did a good job post DK with that receiver room. I wanted to kind of bring it back real quick to the quarterback room and talk a little bit about what they've done there and your impressions there. Say a couple of months back when we all thought, there's probably going to be an extension for Geno Smith and, it probably would be Geno and we're going to probably run that back even with DK. And then, Sam Howell was still on the roster. And then all of that stuff went down that week. And then John pivoted pretty quickly. And then all of a sudden Sam Darnold's in the room. And then you go get a Drew Lock, you bring him back. And then you go, like you said, you take a flower third rounder on a Jalen Milroe, which, again, watching his press conference, I know he is a developmental piece fundamentally, but man, what a well-spoken guy up at the podium. I just thought you gave me that Russ vibe of, how young this dude is and just the way he could speak to the media just seemed like a leader. But what's your impressions now, fast forward now with this quarterback room, say from a couple months back? Are you more excited coming into this season with you got the present and potentially the future, but you can still compete this year? What's your overall feeling with that room now?
Yeah. So, post Geno trade, you move for Darnold. Darnold, I mean, he's a competent quarterback. If the offensive coordinator hire proves to be the right hire, which I think it was, I mean, you can definitely do things with Darnold. As we know, it all hinges on the O-line there. But it was kind of it was still an uncertain quarterback situation, kind of looking to the future a little bit. Like, is Darnold another bridge? Could he be the guy? The contract is written as though it could be like they're open to any of those outcomes. Throwing in Jalen Milroe to the mix definitely makes it more interesting. Like we said, like I don't think Milroe is going to do anything this year, but if Darnold has a bad game or two, like we know we're going to be hearing a lot about Milroe, whether we should or shouldn't, whether he's ready or not. The McDonald will be hearing it from the stands. We want Jalen and stuff. So, I mean, Darnold's going to have to be careful if he messes up at all, just given where the fan base is at and how NFL fandom works. But for me, like my mindset with the quarterback position is just, I'm just going to let it happen. Whatever happens, I'm just going to let it wash over me and occur, and then I'll do my best to assess accordingly. The funny outcome would be if Drew Lock somehow became the guy. I think that'd be really funny and poetic. I'd root for that. But I'm rooting for all these guys, really. They're all cool stories individually, and they're all different timetables too. So Jalen, if nothing happens this year, if you're Jalen, you're cool with that because you just got here. Sam is, he's only 27, 28, so there's time still. And all that. So I don't know. I'm kind of agnostic, I guess, about the quarterback spot overall.
When I look at it, Griff, and I look at, this QB room now in Seattle, I think it's a more complete and in-depth QB room than it was maybe even for the last 2 years. Like we talk about before we had Gino and Drew, and that was fine. But having that third guy in Jalen Milroe now, I think adds a little bit more to that room because you have a bridge in a way now. Like before, we always kept talking from Gino, what is the bridge? Where is the bridge going to be? Now you kind of at least have an idea there is this Jalen Milroe side of it where it's like, hey, we have a bridge off Sam Darnold. If, in 2 years we decide we're going to pull the plug, we have the guy in waiting that's been waiting for 2 years and he's been developing and so on. And I look at it in the same light. I have more confidence if Sam Darnold was to go down that we could put Drew Lock in and still be a 500 football team for 2 games where we may win and lose one. Like we saw that with when he took over at that point and won the Eagles game and they lost the 49er game. But at least we got to see that, hey, Drew Lock can still win you a football game. So I think he's an upgrade at the backup position over Sam Howell. And that's where, when you look at your team and you go, okay, great. So we got a solid QB room of 3 guys that are going to make, a concerted effort to be a better group overall. And then you come back and you look, the running back room's got talent, the receiver room. I think the 3 guys they added in this draft class at O-line, I think are going to push. The 2 guys I think in particular that are going to be pushed by this are LeMaya and Bradford for roster spots, in my opinion. I think Seattle's going to go into the training camp with Sundell and Aoyoo. And I personally think, in my own opinion, Sundell may beat Aoyoo out for that job. I think he fits the scheme better. I think even what we saw with him in the Green Bay game, like there's a certain level I think Sundell might be your next UDFA center that ends up being one of the better guys in the NFL potentially. And I think Christian Haynes is going to actually have a better opportunity to be the guy we thought we were getting last year with that 3rd round pick now that he is in a scheme that fits his skill set better. So it's going to be interesting to see, how these guys all kind of mesh together. I think Mike Jarrell's potentially going to be a guy that we're going to talk about here in a minute when we get to the position battles. But overall, when you look at this draft as a whole, for me, you added best player available in most cases. I think the only one that some people might question is the fullback edition of Robbie Oates. I think it is Oates, or I don't even know how to say his name yet, but I'm going to work on that one. And you look at all the other spots you added, guys, like you really did cater to the offense in the draft to guys that fit what you're trying to make your offensive identity, which is tough, physical, and reliable. And that's something that we haven't been able to say, I think, for a few years with Seattle's drafts, where it's like they keep telling us this is what they want to be, and then they go and draft guys that don't make sense for what they keep telling everyone they want to be. This year was the first time I can say in a while where it's like, yeah, you want to be tough, you want to be physical, you want to run the ball on offense. Well, you went out and got the offensive lineman. You got a tight end to help in kind of both aspects to an extent. You got a physical running back, and you went and got receivers that can block and add to that room and that skill set that you want, an identity you want to build on offense. So, like, I was going to ask you, Griff, like, what grade would you give the Seattle draft?
I think overall I'd give it a probably B+. B+, maybe an A-. I don't come waffling there, but I think it was a strong draft. I think it was a necessary draft. I think it was good BPA, or I think it was a good blend of balancing need and best player available. I think it was a solid draft. I think there was a good amount, a good balance between like floor and ceiling and like risk and reward, kind of, like they're willing to take some risks on guys. And like, if you're going to take a risk on a guy, I think they took it on the right types of player, like Eamon Worry, given the upside, and then Milroe, just him being a quarterback. Like, if you're going to take a risk on a guy in the 3rd round, like quarterback position is pretty savvy in the sense of, what the payoff could be. And like I think they shored up a lot of depth on the day 3, which is important, like we talked about. And there's potential there as well. And like we even talk about Riley Mills, but like he could be a good 5 technique and base for them and a good nickel pass rusher and all that stuff. So there isn't like one player where I'm like, this isn't going to work at all. Like, why did they do this? I made all my bones about Eamon Worry, but like, even then, like you still get it, and it's still a far cry from taking LJ Collier in the 1st, So yeah, I'd give it probably, I don't know, I talked myself into, I keep forgetting how good day 3 was. I think I'd give it an A- just to point blank. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, taking an offensive lineman in the 1st round and also drafting the quarterback in the same draft for John Schneider. I mean, that's pretty remarkable in its own. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of cool too, because I feel like everybody kind of got a guy, like Clint Kubiak. We talked about Aoyoo, right? How the tight end is so crucial in his scheme. And then Mike McDonald, like you said, put his flag into the ground with the Emin pick. And then, going to get a quarterback, man. I mean, it was funny. Even when they announced the pick, we were talking about it leading up to the pick. Like, we were like, go get Milroe. And then they draft him, and you almost forget, like, wow, John actually took a QB, because we talked about all even the season before. Is it time to draft a guy? And I think it was just good. This was the perfect draft for him to draft a QB, because there was so much value in the later rounds. Everyone talks about how next year's a better class. But hey, look, man, if we're talking about this team potentially competing and winning even more games, potentially, if how this roster's set up, you think, based on the schedule, this could be a good team, like potentially in 11, 12 wins. I mean, I'm not going to start jinxing this and throwing out wins, but then you're going to be in the same position where you're drafting down the line again. For then you got the same old excuse where you miss out on a QB. So that's why I'm even stoked with the Milroe pick, where you got a guy now you can just sit back, no pressure, see how he develops, so it's awesome. So yeah, I throw that. I also got around an A-, grade as well.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna go, like, Griff kind of said, B+ A- for me. With the Robbie Oates, acquisition at fullback there in the 5th round, I wonder if there was someone else maybe they could have added, but clearly they had conviction about getting him. Like, they were worried that he wasn't going to be there later on, and they didn't want to leave it up to UDFA to try and get him. But you look at the whole class, and I look at best player available in a lot of situations, met needs at the same time. And that's the first time I can say that with a John Schneider draft, where we're talking about that, and we're getting quality players that we can. Like, I look at our first 2 days of the draft and go, outside of Jalen Miller, who will have, I think, an impact to an extent in some sub packages, but I'm looking at Arroyo, Emin, and Gray Zabel, and I'm going, all 3 of those guys should have a significant impact on this roster. And I look at the 3 of them combined and go, yeah, that might be one more win on this total from the team we had last year, potentially, right? And then I go down and I look at day 3 and I go, okay, the receivers we took, the running back we took, the depth lineman we take. Okay, maybe that also helps us in situations that we haven't had before, where we're turning to guys that are, guys that were players that got lots of starts in college. Like, we're not talking about offensive linemen that started like 1 game or 5 games maybe, and we're throwing like, we're talking about 2 guys that started a lot, especially like a Mason Richmond, who's playing at Iowa, which is known for producing offensive linemen in the Big Ten. They play a lot. So for me, like, that's why it pushes it from that B+ to that A-. Overall, like, I can't remember a draft class. Like, this might be the best draft class John Schneider has had. And again, we still have to see it all come together over the next couple of years, but it could be the only class he's had since 2012 that is close to what he did in 2012. And that class that he put together with Bobby and Russ and all that. And I'm not saying I expect these guys to be Hall of Fame, but I'm just talking about impact on the team and on the franchise. This one is the closest potential to be the same way we had in 2012 with impact level on the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, it has the raw horsepower for that type of potential. You can like a draft, but you can say, like, like even if all these picks hit, the potential is only so much. In this case, the potential with the picks they've taken, it could definitely be like franchise changing, as you say.
All right, Griff. So going into the next part of this, position battles for training camp. Who are some guys that are currently on the roster you think are going to be in position battles, maybe that they weren't accounting for prior to this draft?
So, I mean, there are probably the better answer for this is probably O-line and like the edge rotation and stuff. But who I think I keep thinking about is, and depending on how he's coming back from injury, but is Jarek Reed. I just think he's so explosive, and we only had the preseason with him. I think he got hurt last preseason? Was it Mike's first year?
No, he got hurt the year before Mike got here, because he played. He missed most of last season with Mike and didn't, I think, came in till halfway through last season.
Right. Okay. So, I wonder if they try to, if he proves worthy, if they try to get him into the safety rotation throughout the year, maybe find him 200, 300 snaps to start. I wonder if he can push Kobe Bryant. I like Kobe Bryant. I just value Jarek Reed quite a bit. I just think he's so like high density for a small guy and explosive and quick in a short area. I just feel like that fits a quarters team and a cover 6 team. So, I'm going to say Jarek Reed. Then probably, yeah, man. What happens at right guard? I think Zabel he's a surefire thing at left guard. So right guard between Haynes, Laumea, and Bradford. Those 3 guys, they're all going to get looks. The coaching staff's going to give them everything they got. I suspect Haynes will win out. I think he was always meant to. And I hope this year proves that last year was just kind of, give him a mulligan type thing. But I'm going to go right guard and kind of like the backup safety situation with Jarek Reed.
Ryan, how about you?
Nice. Yeah. To me, Griff, how are you looking at on the offensive side of the ball? Anything in particular there with battles? We talked about receivers. That room's pretty deep. How do you see Bobo now? Kind of fitting in on this team, kind of obviously down on the depth chart, but with the couple of guys we drafted, and then JSN and Cooper Kupp, like, do you see maybe not much there for him at all?
Well, I feel like with Bobo, I think Kubiak sees him as a useful player, kind of like when they go into 11, he's your third receiver. He can kind of view 11 as like 11 and a half personnel, because you can pinch him down and he can do some blocking. So he might almost kind of view him as another F tight end, formationally. Not like you're not ever going to call him to block guys for real, but linebackers and safeties maybe. And I think one of the things Kubiak values above all is just being able to get into formation sets out of a different personnel grouping that you normally don't see that formation with. And so I think Bobo will be a useful player to him. Frankly, like I really wonder how Bobo and MVS I think MVS, Bobo, and Horton are all going to be fighting for snaps for that third receiver spot. So I think Bobo's floor is kind of high as a role player. I don't think he brings you a lot of juice. When they go into 2x2 stuff, and like you can run weak side choice to Jake Bobo because he's so sudden in the short area. And Kubiak will be giving tryouts to all his guys, like, hey, who's the best choice route runner? I think obviously JSN and Kupp are the best, but like Arroyo will factor in. If Noah Fant's still on the roster, they'll give him a shot, but they're going to give Bobo a shot. So I think there will be a 3-way battle between MVS, Bobo, and Horton. I think MVS could lose snaps throughout the year if he's not careful. But also running back.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
That's the other spot. McIntosh has few opportunities, but he's looked good, everything we've seen out of him. So, I think running back will be pretty hotly contested too.
How many backs do you see them carrying when it's all said and done? Like, because like I was super high. I've been super high on Kenny Mack. And then when he did get in last year, everything was always seemed like a positive to me.
Yeah. There's kind of that rumor floating around about Ken Walker might get moved. And personally, like I subscribe to that being legitimate. Doesn't mean anything will happen, but I think they probably have talked about him a little bit and getting moved. But I think they're going to be 4 true ball carriers, and then they're going to have Oots as a fullback and then Brady Russell as a half fullback, half H-back, half tight end thing. So I maybe 6 total technically, but 4 true ball carriers I think is what they want.
Yeah, for me, like when I look at that running back room, I look at it and I go, I think there's 2 guys on this roster currently that are still available for trade, and they may not have made it publicly yet, but I think Noah Fant and I think Ken Walker are both up. And I think Ken Walker in the system works.
Yeah.
But I don't think you take a back like Damian Martinez. And I know people are going to look and say, oh, he was so lately taken in the draft. But like we just talked about earlier, like he was probably a higher round graded player than most. And I think he fits the scheme. He's a one cut. Like the thing with this offense, even though it's wide zone, it is still a one cut and then get north-south. That's the whole point of this wide zone offense. And Kenny Mack showed he can do it. Charbonnet, I think, potentially could make this work. And then, I look at Damian Martinez, and I think Noah Fant is someone else to keep an eye on. If a team comes calling, at some point, whether it's mid preseason or just after the end of it, looking for a tight end because they lose somebody to injury or something, I think that's where you see Brady Russell and Oots both making this team, because I think Oots is going to be your fullback. And like Griff said, Brady Russell is going to be like that H-back kind of hybrid between the two. And you're going to have him and, Noah Fant and Elijah Arroyo, and maybe there's someone else. They do have, I keep blanking on his name that they acquired. I want to call it Sorbet, but it's not Sorbet. Saubert, I think, is his name, the guy from San Francisco they picked up, which I think most people forget that they did, but he's a good blocking tight end. I also don't know if Seattle carries more than 5 receivers this year. I think you've got Cooper Kupp, JSN. I think you're going to see both rookies make it, and Ricky White and Torrey Horton, and I think it's between Bovo and MVS for that other spot. And they can carry a veteran potentially on the practice squad, so maybe MVS is that practice squad guy like they've used Artie Burns on the defensive side before. I just think, I feel like MVS was more of a placeholder in case they didn't get someone they liked in the draft.
Yeah.
And now I think with Torrey Horton and Ricky White, you've got guys like Torrey Horton can push the ball vertically down the field with his routes. Like, you can do that with him. And then I think offensive line, it's going to be a constant competition on that group. I think the only true starters that are solidified are Lucas if he's healthy and Charles Cross. I think every other group in there is up for a battle. And even that's with Gray Zabel coming in, I still think he's got to obviously prove himself. Defensively, I'm interested to actually see the cornerbacks, because I want to see what Nehemiah Pritchett can do.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I want to see what he can do. Josh Job's been brought back. You've got, obviously Devin Witherspoon. But for me, it's more, what does Reek look like in this training camp? Like, he's playing for money, right? Like, this is his contract year to get that $90 million that all these other guys are getting. What type of Reek Woolen do we see? And I think he might be in a little bit of a position battle, even though they didn't draft anybody. I don't think Reek's out of the woods yet when it comes to potentially being a piece that they may trade or have someone come compete for his reps.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting they didn't really target cornerback in the draft. Maybe they wanted to, and it didn't work out. But I think they were cool with just kind of rolling with the status quo there, get some undrafted free agent guys. That might be a position where, you talk about Walker or Fant being potential trade chips. John loves to make 11th hour trades for, cornerbacks. And it's not like those have been of no consequence. They got, I think, what both Justin Coleman and Marcus Burley were like acquired in August, So, I mean, John's found starters before, or at least high snap players at the spot. So, and they found Job for nothing, essentially. They found DJ Reed for nothing. So, yeah, there might be another guy there. And yeah, so, I mean, because like you say, cornerback's pretty wide open. That third spot is kind of up for the taking. Yeah, so I'm curious there as well. I like Joe, but it's probably a player you could upgrade on if you really wanted to. So we'll see what happens there. I hope I hope we get a report where they just say, hey, we're just playing around with Eamon Warrior at corner just to see what he's capable of. I mean, his press man in the slot at I think the Ole Miss game. I mean, granted it was a tight end, but like his technique is good there. And I think that could translate outside as well. He certainly has a long speed for it. So I hope they play around with him. But yeah, corner's another position as well.
Yeah, no, it's going to be pretty interesting for camp battles. But yeah, Griff, awesome insight, man. Appreciate you coming back on the show again. We talk about how it's kind of a slower time of year post draft, but to get your insight and about these players and breaking it down, man, it's awesome stuff. But you know what? Before we let you go, why don't you let everybody know that watches our channel what you got going on and where we can find you?
Appreciate that, guys. Yeah, Matty Brown and I, and sometimes Ty Dan Gonzalez, another Seahawks podcast, Seattle Overload. You can Google us, YouTube us. We're more video oriented these days. We're on Twitter, Blue Sky as well. You can find us there. If you know us, you know us at this point. Yeah, so we're talking ball. We'll eventually get tape reviews of all these guys that they've taken, and we try to we try to frame things of like, all right, here's our opinion, but then if we were to argue the utmost positive side and then the utmost negative side, just so we feel like that's a sobering exercise, so we know what we're really signing ourselves up for, and helps you see past your own biases and stuff. Not that we're always perfect at that, but that's what we try to do. So we're a lot like you guys. We're just talking ball X's and O's and all that stuff. So yeah, guys, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. So always a blast talking with you guys.
Yeah, awesome, Griff. We appreciate it again, and we'll talk to you in the future here.
All right, peace out.
Thanks, Griff.
Thanks, Griff. Guys, that was Griffin Sturgeon from Seattle Overload. Awesome conversation, man, with Griff. It was, like you and I talked about before we even came on the show, kind of a slow time of the year. Now everyone's so hyped, and then, the draft happens. You just kind of, coming back down to earth. And, rookie minicamp is cool because, you find out, they're the guys, they're in Seattle. But you know what? Having Griff on to really break down some of these guys and how he felt about the draft was awesome, because some of his insight, especially talking about Aoyoo and one of probably sounded like his favorite guy in the draft, and all the film that all of a sudden he goes in and does a deep dive gets you excited, because I'm already excited about some of the other guys and I like that pick, but it's awesome just hearing from him about, a guy he's really getting excited about, and, where we got him, and talking about the other two high profile tight ends that were in this draft as well. Right. So.
Yeah, no. And having Griff come on, he gives such an in-depth look at the players, how they are potentially going to fit on this team. And that's what I love talking with Griff about. I was really interested to hear what he was going to think of Evan Mori, because I know Griff really likes to look at his defensive players and, get that insight on where they're going to fit. And how he said, we don't want this to turn into an Isaiah Simmons situation or a Melifonwu situation where we're looking at a guy and going, crap, like it's year 3. He had this testing score and he was supposed to be this type of guy, and we haven't figured out how to use him yet. Like, I think moving him to nickel is exactly how you're going to get the most impact out of him for the first couple of years. And even on the other guys we talked about, like Martinez and the receivers and Jalen Milroe and all these guys that we've drafted, just how do they fit into this scheme? Because you got to remember, this defense is basically returning everybody for one. Offense is going to have the highest turnover, but it's not like we're turning over into nothing. You have an established quarterback. It's not like we got rid of Geno and we don't have somebody established coming in. We got rid of DK. We don't have an established receiver. So all these positions are up for grabs. It's more like, hey, yeah, we've moved on from some guys, but we've already got established guys in there. Now, how does the rest of this depth and everything piece together with the guys they brought in?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, it's totally more like a pivot, right? Like, we liked DK Metcalf and, we talked about him, but, it doesn't, I wouldn't even say softens the blow. It's just you pivot in a different direction. You have a whole new scheme. You look at the tight end we brought in now as a rookie to go with Barner. And so, going to be a receiving threat potentially. And then now it's time for JSN to step up with an established quarterback. At least had a great year last year and kind of hitting his stride, it feels like. So there's a lot of things to be excited about. And interesting about, when we touched on the backs at the end too, about Ken Walker, like how many backs is he carrying? Wait a second. He could potentially be the odd man out if he gets on the trade block, because it's a contract year. You draft this kid, like you mentioned, I think you brought it up. People are like, well, look how late you took him. He gives you Chris Carson vibes. Well, if I don't know if people forget how late we took Chris Carson, 7th rounder. And turned out to be a lot of people's favorite backs is his running style. And that's what this kid brings. He wants to hit, he wants to go. So it's exciting. It's exciting to be a Hawks fan. So yeah, awesome episode, guys. And we're going to keep it rolling. So even though, you might think it's a little slow this time of year, we're going to be bringing guys on, breaking stuff down, just like tonight. Like, you're getting an insight like this from a guy like Griff that, really you don't get from a lot of other places, really breaking down these guys. It was an awesome show. Real quick, Bryce, any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
A lot of fun tonight. We've got Clinton Bonner coming on from the Seahawks podcast this Saturday. So when you guys see this, Clinton will be come on, and we're going to be talking draft, his favorite picks, what he liked about rookie minicamp, what he's seen or heard so far. How does he think this team's going to look going into this season? We might even dabble on looking ahead a little bit to the schedule and some of these opponents and how after the draft this NFC West division shapes up and how we feel the rest of the division did. And that will be a live show, guys, 12 p.m. Pacific time. So make sure you guys tune into that and get your comments and questions in there for Clinton and the rest of us.
Awesome, guys. And make sure you go down, subscribe to the channel, like and share the videos. We're also on fieldgoals.com. So make sure you go over there too and check out our podcast there and all the awesome writers that are putting that Seahawks content out there. So that's it for us tonight. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.